Mr. William, Blair, Mr. Hans, Paul Burkner, Mr. Jitendra Chandan, Mr. Nitin Pai, and all the delegates gathered today. Thanks for taking out of the time and gracing us with your estimated presence. In the backdrop of the current shifting global political scenario, the world is looking at India, and India has potential to the next global manufacturing hub. We, Karnataka, are already contributed to this vision of making India the next global manufacturing hub. Karnataka, as you have all are well wishers, India's leading investment destination with multiple accolades on itself. First in attracting investment since 2006. First in renewable energy, 63% of our installed capacity lies in the renewable energy. First in electric vehicles, innovation, home to 7 auto OEM and 50% auto competitor manufacturing and 45 electric vehicle stops. First in bioproduction expert. First in electrician design and R&D in India. With our ESDM policy, we are providing highest incentive in India. First in R&D determined. First in Indian Innovation Index. Bangalore is world fastest growing technology and innovation cluster. Karnataka has been ranked a top attractive in the easy doing business, ranking by Department of Promotion and Industry International Trader. Karnataka has been agreed as best professional in the state stamp ranking 2021 by DPITE. Karnataka continues to remain first attending FDI from the April 21, March 22, with a 1,076 CR, 38% share of a total FDI in India. This has been despite of the challenging promise solution. They ensured that the continued monitoring of leadership of position and sustainable growth. The government of Karnataka has taken several measures to enhance investor friendly in the state. We have also taken up the first of its kind innovating in the country under products, especially industries cluster program. This including FMCG cluster in Dharwad, toys cluster in Koppal, bulk dog park in Yadgiri, EV cluster in Ramanagara, and so on. We also released updated policies of engineering, R&D, electric vehicles, data center policy, and aerospace and defense policy. With this compensative policy, reforms of the continue the imagine that we are a policy-driving state, and hence deliveries will continue in our promises in investors. I look forward of the discussion today and hope that of all of you present have made the best of the sum. Jai Hind, Jai Karnataka.
Very reassuring to hear those words, Mr. Minister. It's always good to know about the steps that the government is taking. Sachivaru Shri Shivaram Hebbar avarige dhanyavadagalu. And I'm here to invite all the panelists for this session, which is about the India advantage the epicenter of global supply chain shift, for which I now invite the Vice President and Chief Executive for India at Lockheed Martin, Mr. William Blair, onto the stage. May we have a round of applause to welcome all our panelists and the moderator, the Chairman of BCG Global, Mr. Hon'ble Burkner, the Vice President and Country Head India at GlobalFoundries, Shri Jitendra Chaddah, and also the session moderator, the co-founder of Takshashila Institution, Shri Nitin Pai. It's over to you, Nitin.
Good morning, everyone. I think we are in a very interesting part of today's discussion because it might mean a lot to Bangalore in the next 10 to 20 years. Before I start, I would just want you to think. Imagine there is another outer ring road outside the current ring road. And just like how the current outer ring road has industries, businesses that support the global IT industry, we have the outer ring road, the next outer ring road doing semiconductor design for the world, other kinds of high technology industries where Bangalore is actually servicing the rest of the world. It might mean horrible things for our traffic, but I think it means fantastic things for our economic growth, prosperity, and especially for the young people sitting out here, great jobs and great livelihoods. Now, such a future is actually possible given the situation today. Now, today we're going to talk about supply chains. I just want you to hold that vision in mind when you have this conversation. What does it mean for Bangalore, right? So, I have three great panelists here, and we're going to talk about how this vision of shifting of the world's industrial base, the world's industrial supply chains in various dimensions can happen and how Karnataka and Bangalore can take advantage of it. Now, unlike what we've put on the theme of the event saying that India is the epicenter of this supply chain movement, I think India has that opportunity. And the opportunity is not the same as having actually grabbed that opportunity. So there's a long way for us to go to grab that opportunity, and the dignitaries, the officials, and the people here, I think the common message for us to take back after this session is how do we make this opportunity a reality such that it changes our lives and prosperity for the state and for the country. So let me start with Hon'ble, who as a top executive at BCG was responsible for making the globalization of the last 30 years happened and such a powerful force for prosperity for the rest of the world, and also for its concentration in a few parts of the world. So can I just ask you to tell us the story of how we got here? How is it that supply chains got concentrated in a few places in the last 25 to 30 years? And then what is it that caused this movement towards de-risking and trying to move the supply chains from where they are now to a broader base?
Well, I would say, actually, we're not so concentrated, even though it looks like that everything is in China. But, you know, with the opening up of the economies beyond Europe, North America, and Japan, you know, the formerly communist countries open up the late 80s. India opened up in the early 90s. But also countries in Southeast Asia, you know, Vietnam, Indonesia joined the group of open economies. We've seen really enormous spread of economic activity across the world. And even, of course, the Middle East, you know, some countries in Africa and certainly Latin America have benefited, Mexico in particular. The key really is to be part of the world, really producing lots of products and services and contributing to that, and therefore also providing lots of opportunities for people as workers, as entrepreneurs around the world, but also making better, providing better products and services, and also cheaper products and services for consumers around the world. So I think it has been enormous benefit for everybody around the world, making sure that hundreds of millions of people have moved out of poverty and really become a part of the, or member of the global world economy as an active member. And I think, of course, when you look at the situation in India, say, why are we not at the center of this? I think in some parts, India has really played a very important role. I mean, you mentioned IT services. The minister also mentioned IT services, where India has been a core place, but not yet in manufacturing because of the obstacles that people and investors, both domestic and foreign investors, have really met here in India. So whereas other countries like China, but also Vietnam and others, Mexico, have been very open to that kind of investment. And I think, the question is not why are we not, because why have we not provided the opportunities?
Thanks. I want to go to Bill. Bill, you were with General Electric. You were saying you were with General Electric and now with Lockheed. And if I were to look at you as a representative of American business, why is it that the United States for the last 25 to 30 years did not recognize that massive amounts of high technology investments in China is going to be a geopolitical problem? Why is it that it took, from 1979 to maybe 2016, why did it take that long for the United States to realize that concentrating supply chains is a challenge? It's a geopolitical challenge. It's not just a business challenge.
Well, I think I'll just follow on my colleagues' prior comments. I was going to say that it's more about, going forward, diversification, right? When we look at our workforce, we know we have a stronger and more resilient workforce when we diversify. And the same is true in our supply chains. We need strong, resilient supply chains through diversification. So although I'm from the US, I've spent most of my life since over the last 30 years working internationally. And I see the world differently from what you just described it. I see the world where US companies, European companies, Asian companies are seeking to establish presence in places that maybe felt foreign to them. Look at how Japan automotive companies have moved into India. Look at our presence in India for over 40 years and establishing partners with companies like Tata. Tata Lockheed Martin, Tata Sikorsky. We did that out of an opportunity because we saw centers of innovation and efficiency here in India, just as we did elsewhere in the world. But I think what has COVID taught us, and what has the recent geopolitical scenario taught us, we need to work together with like-minded nations and establish those resilient relationships built on trust and performance. And I think Karnataka here in this state with Bangalore has proven that as a center of innovation for most of the most advanced companies that we work with in the US and Europe and the rest of Asia. And I think that's the future.
Thanks. JC, if I were to come to you, nothing exemplifies concentration of an industry in few geographies as your industry, semiconductors. Like TSMC, South Korea and Japan, if you look at these three places, they probably constitute, lion's share of the production of semiconductors around the world, if you include China. Now, can you share with us how did this happen? Why did the semiconductor industry concentrate in that part of the world? Although the technology came from the United States, from the beginning, the technology has always been from the United States and Europe. Why did manufacturing concentrate in that part of the world?
First of all, good morning, everyone, and thanks for this opportunity. I will answer it in a little bit differently. What is actually now transpiring? It may have happened for maybe the cost reasons. It may have happened because everybody was trying to get the best product and through a concentrated effort and so on. But if you really look at it, there are few trends that are going on that I think right now we should pay attention to versus what may have transpired in the past. And few of them, I think they are very obvious, but I will just simplify it for all of us. One is, I think the demand for the electronics and the semiconductors continues to rise, and it is driven by a lot of technology that is required for automation, for consumer electronics, for the new technologies that are pushing it, like the 5Gs and AIs and so on and so forth. I think that trend which started maybe 5-7 years back will continue. You can always say, yeah, there is a little bit of a slowdown that is happening, but that is cyclic. It happens in this industry all the time. So the trend of more and more semiconductor requirement and electronics requirement, I think would continue to happen for us to be a better society in the future. The number two, I think, is the geopolitical, pressures that are coming up, or what is happening from, different countries, the trade war, you can call it, or a little bit of a disruption that is happening with some of the war situation, which is disrupting our, overall supply chain. But what is happening there is people are starting to rebalance that as far as supply chain of semiconductor industry is concerned and the manufacturing in the semiconductor industry is concerned. So what you would look 10 years from now, I think you would have a different balance than you see today that has transpired over the last 10 years. Third thing, very important, this is a very complex, technologically advanced industry, the semiconductor world. And there is a lot of new technological advancements are coming in, which will define the future of how the manufacturing, how the connectivity, and what chemicals and the materials will be used in this industry in the future. So that advancement is happening. You might have heard of silicon photonics, the gallium nitride fabs, and so on and so forth. So those are the technological advancements that are happening. And the last one I would say, if you look at the overall semiconductor industry, there is a skill requirement that is lagging behind what is required in this industry. And the skills is not only in the manufacturing space, but also in the design space, the system engineering space, and also in the manufacturing space, the technicians that are required, the researchers that are required for semiconductor manufacturing. So if you really look at these four trends, I think what we should look at, if we are in Karnataka or India, we should look at what do we need to prepare for to meet the needs or to really comply with the trends that are happening in this industry.
Okay, I'll stop you there. We'll come to the to-dos in the next round. But I have a question for all three of you. You could take this in series, right? The last few years, we had three big shocks. The US-China tech war, the trade war, COVID-19, and now the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Now, all three shocks point towards the same thing as far as supply chains are concerned. Right? You need to diversify. Bill, as you said, you need to diversify. Can I ask each of you to share your thoughts on your learnings, impressions, insights from being through these three shocks? And what does it mean for